Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm Cece, and for those of you who are new here, I do nail stamping compilations, and recently I started doing a series on different brands of stamping products, in particular stamping plates. A lot of these brands you can find on Amazon. Some of them are really inexpensive, some of them are fairly expensive in comparison. And I'm testing them all so that you know which ones work, which ones don't, what the pros and cons are of each brand, how much you can expect to spend, and ultimately can find brands that will work the best for you without having to try everything yourself. So today I'm doing a brand called Whaline, W-H-A-L-I-N-E. I might be saying that wrong. Maybe it's Whaline. I'm not sure. This package came with 6 different plates for a very good price, and I got these on Amazon. So first thing I noticed about these plates, I actually had a really hard time when I was looking at the Whaline plates on Amazon finding any that I thought I would actually use. Most of their designs were relatively cartoony. They had a lot of holiday designs, lots of Halloween and Christmas and things like that. Lots of very cartoony designs. And those are things that I don't use all that often. Now, there was one plate in this set that did have some plaid on it and some solid designs. And here's some more checkerboard and things like that. But overall, their designs were less in line with my style. So that in itself is rather negative in terms of my assessment of these. If you like that style, then this might be a brand that will work great for you. Ultimately, when I did select some plates from them, I decided to go with Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day plates because those are holidays that are coming up. And if I'm going to use these kinds of cartoony plates, holidays tend to be the time when I will do it. So I thought that would work the best for me. Now for each manufacturer of plates, I am testing 3 different stamps. And I'm testing one that has some large area of nail polish. I'm testing one that has some fine detail. And I'm testing one that seems maybe a little bit unique or representative of that style of plate. So for these, I see some areas, large areas of polish on some of these hearts. Here's a great one because it's got a medium area of polish along with some detail around it. I think that's the one I'm going to use for that test. And then I'm going to find one that has some more detail, maybe some fine lines and things like that. This certainly has some fine lines. None of these are really as fine as the last 2 plates that I tested, so that is one thing to kind of note. Now here we go. These are pretty fine. That might be similar to some of the other plates that I've tested. So I think I'll try this one right here. And lastly, I'm going to do something that's maybe a little more representative of the style of the plate. So anything that's kind of unique to these plates, certainly they have a lot of patterns. A lot of these patterns have fine details and words. So I think I'm going to try one with some fine details and wording, since a lot of these have that and it's sort of representative and unique to these plates. I'm going to try, I think I'm going to try this one. It's pretty busy. It's got a lot of areas of large stamping and detail. It's got some words on it. I'm really curious if we'll even be able to read those words. It looks like it says Happy St. Pat's Day. Pat's abbreviated with the apostrophe S. And, you know, this is one of the things that I have noticed on some of these less expensive plates on Amazon, that the design choices sometimes, even if in theory they sound good, the reality is that they haven't really thought through how it's going to look on a nail. And it's hard for me to imagine that any of this will actually be legible. It can barely even read it on the plate itself. So some of these less expensive plates, I think one of the reasons maybe they're less expensive is not actually the quality of the stamping, but it's whether or not the design was thought through by somebody experienced in design and particularly experienced in how designs transfer to nails and how they actually look. So some of these things, it'll be really interesting to see. That being said, let's go ahead and start with our larger format test. I'm going to take off the protective covering and just make sure that there was no damage to the plate. And sure enough, these plates all look undamaged, clean, no scratches. Actually, I take that back. I think there's a little scratch here. That doesn't seem to be coming off. There is some scratch on this plate, which is the first time I've had that happen. Luckily, it doesn't affect any of the design. I will say that these plates are relatively thin. They're similar to the Panda Hall and Beauty plates that I have worked with. So we'll see how that goes. One other thing I noticed about these plates is that they do have an individual stamp identifying the plate, which is really nice for me. If this matters to you too, it could. And the reason that this matters to me is because sometimes if I really like a design, I might take note in my notebook of which plates I used, which base polish I used, which stamping polish I used, so I can recreate it if I want to. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. For each of these tests, I'm using the same base coat, which is Sally Hansen Back to Black Insta-Dry. And I'm using the same stamping polish, which is a Maniology. It's called Bam White. And I'm using those colors because the white will really show any errors or mistakes in the stamping on the black background. And I want to make sure I'm using the same stamper and stamping scraper so that I'm keeping all of my variables the same and being as scientific as I can with these tests. I'm also trying to keep the timing about the same so that it's fair. So I'm trying to do this relatively quickly. It looks like it was a pretty clean pickup. There's a couple little dots there that may have missed, but nothing really dramatic. And then when I do the stamp, let's see. Yep, it was a pretty clean transfer. No real issues. It's not a perfect pickup and not a perfect stamp, but it would be hard to really see any flaws with that on a nail. Overall, I would say that's probably typical amount of stamping error. I'd give that probably an 8 out of 10 in terms of transfer and pickup. Now I'm going to do one of the more detailed stamps. And I think for this one, maybe I'll use this. I was also looking at, oh, that's right. So for the more detailed stamp, actually, I am going to use this plate. I'm going to use this guy. It's a nice fine line, and it'll be really easy to see if the whole line picks up. My nails are really chipped because I have been taking so many of these blue films off that I keep getting chips around my nails. So if you are taking these off, make sure that you're near the end of the life on your current manicure because it is pretty harsh on your manicures. Here we go. My white polish, my scraper, my stamper, and there we go. That picked up really cleanly. I'm going to go ahead and move relatively quickly to stamping it. And that stamped really nicely. I also got some of the neighboring stamp because I didn't bother to clean it off. Yeah, that looks really great. I got the full stamp. I got really clean lines. It went on very straight and even. It was easy to stamp. So really no issues at all with that one. That was pretty exciting. And lastly, I'm going to do this kind of wild, busy one, this Happy St. Pat's Day. I'm going to go ahead and use this really busy one right here. There is a lot going on in this stamp, and I am really curious to see if you can even tell. One thing I do notice about some of these plates is that the design, particularly near the top, really goes right to the edge. and that can make it hard to scrape these. There we go. It's a pretty clean transfer. It's not perfect. There is certainly a lot going on in this stamp. Now I'm going to do this relatively quickly. Okay. So pretty much everything that did make it onto the stamp did make it onto the nail. You can see there are some areas that didn't pick up everything. There are some details that are really just too fine for you to even tell what they are. This one, I think, is supposed to be a little shamrock. It kind of just looks like a blob. You really can't read this wording. It says happy. I'm still not totally certain. I'm pretty sure it says Happy St. Pat's Day with an apostrophe S. It's so tiny you can't see it. So overall, I think that's one thing to note about these is that maybe some of the designs aren't well thought through in terms of, is the size really appropriate for a nail for stamping? I also can't help but notice that it's really difficult to get the full pattern on these that are printed so close to the top. I'm not sure if that was actually intentional or if that was a printing error, because you can see on this one they were printed much further from the top. This one seems a lot more usable, whereas this one, it's so close to the top and so close to the corner that it's very hard to actually scrape starting there. You might be able to scrape this way a little bit easier, but then you're getting to that rounded curve. Overall, I think these are going to be tough to use the full pattern. Now, a lot of times you don't need that full pattern, so it might not be that big of a deal. But it's definitely something that makes these a little bit less nice than some of the more expensive brands. I think overall, I'd give these really a 3 out of 10 in terms of the designs are very cartoonish and not really just a style that I like. It seems like some of the designs are really poorly thought through, and the placement on the actual stamp, the stamping pad, is also very poorly thought through. Overall, the stamping transfer was pretty good, especially with this line. That turned out really nicely. But I think that the problems with these are going to cause a lot of frustration, especially for beginning users. So if I were you, I would stay away from this brand. I hope you all found this useful. If it was helpful to you, please like, and if you'd like to see more in this series, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for joining me, and have a great day.